The stars looked different this far from Earth. Captain Minho stood on the bridge of the eternal dawn, watching the view screen with careful eyes. His colony ship had been traveling for 3 years, carrying 5,000 sleeping colonists to a new world. Everything had gone according to plan until this morning. Now, an alien ship floated beside them. It was huge, at least 5 times larger than the eternal dawn. Its surface was smooth and silver, covered in patterns that seemed to shift and change. No windows, no visible weapons, just that strange, flowing metal. "Captain, they're sending another message," said Nari from the communications station. She was young, barely 25, but she had a good head on her shoulders. Her fingers moved quickly across her console. "Put it through," Minho said. The view screen changed. An alien face appeared, and Minho had to stop himself from stepping back. The creature looked like someone had mixed a person with a machine. Half of its face was smooth blue skin, but the other half was made of crystal and metal. Its eyes glowed with a soft white light. When it spoke, its mouth didn't quite match the words. "Greetings, humans of the vessel, Eternal Dawn. I am Commander Yuna of the Valorian Empire. We mean you no harm. We wish only to learn about your kind." Minho glanced at Dr. Hana, who stood beside him. The ship's doctor and scientist, she had been studying the alien signals all morning. She gave him a small nod. So far, the aliens had done nothing threatening. "This is Captain Minho. We accept your greeting, Commander Yuna. This is humanity's first contact with another intelligent species." "We are honored." Yuna's head tilted in a way that seemed almost human. "First contact? How interesting. We have met many species across the galaxy. Each one is unique. Each one teaches us something new." The alien paused. "We would like to invite you and your senior staff to our ship. A cultural exchange. We will send some of our people to your vessel as well. Is this acceptable?" Minho thought quickly. They were alone out here, far from Earth or any human help. But running wasn't an option. The alien ship could probably catch them easily. And maybe, just maybe, this was a real chance for peace. "We accept your invitation," Minho said. 2 hours later, Minho stood in the shuttle bay with his team. Dr. Hana checked her medical equipment for the 3rd time. Engineer Tai Yang, a tall man with rough hands and a quiet voice, inspected the shuttle engines. And Jiho, their youngest security officer, stood by the door with a nervous look on his face. "Remember," Minho said, "we're ambassadors now. Everything we do represents humanity. Be respectful, be careful, and trust your instincts." The shuttle flight to the Valorian ship was short. When the airlock opened, they found themselves in a hallway that seemed to go on forever. The walls glowed with soft blue light. The air felt cool and dry, and it smelled like rain and metal mixed together. Commander Yuna waited for them. Up close, she was even stranger. Parts of her body seemed to shimmer and fade, as if she wasn't quite solid. 2 other Valorians stood with her, equally mixed between flesh and machine. "Welcome aboard the Eternal Calculations," Yuna said. "Please follow me. We have prepared a space for you." They walked through corridors that twisted and turned. Minho tried to memorize the path, but it was difficult. Everything looked the same. Finally, they reached a large room filled with comfortable furniture that seemed designed for humans. A table held food and water. "We scanned your vessel to understand your needs," Yuna explained. "We want you to be comfortable. Please sit. Let us talk." The conversation started simply. The Valorians asked about Earth, about human culture, about their technology. Minho and his team answered carefully, sharing information, but not too much. It all seemed friendly. Then Dr. Hana asked a question that changed everything. "Commander Yuna, forgive me, but I'm curious. Your body, it's partially mechanical. Is this natural for your species? Or is it enhancement?" Yuna's glowing eyes brightened. Ah, yes. We are biomechanical beings. Our species evolved this way over millions of years. It gives us many advantages. For example, when we need to rest, we can enter stasis mode. Our consciousness stops. Our bodies shut down to minimal power. We can stay this way for years if needed. It makes long space travel very efficient. You can just turn off? Taeyang asked, surprised. Of course. Can you not? Yuna looked confused. All intelligent species we have met have some form of power-saving mode. It is essential for survival. During danger, during resource shortage, during long journeys. Surely humans have this ability? Minho and Hana exchanged looks. No, Hana said slowly. Humans don't have anything like that. We sleep, yes, but we can wake up at any moment. We never truly shut down. Not until we die. The three Valorians went very still. They looked at each other, communicating somehow without words. When Yuna turned back to the humans, something in her expression had changed. You cannot turn off your consciousness? Not even in emergency situations? No, Minho said. Once we're born, we're awake until we die. Sleep is just rest. Our minds keep working, dreaming. We can be woken by sound, touch, danger. We're always on. Yuna stood up slowly. How do you survive long voyages? How do you handle resource shortages? We just push through, Hana said. We endure. We find a way. The alien commander stared at them for a long moment. Fascinating, she finally said, but her voice sounded strange and terrifying. A species that never stops, never rests, never switches off. She seemed to shake herself. Please, excuse me. This information requires consideration. Let me show you to your quarters. We will continue our talks tomorrow. As the humans were led away, Minho couldn't shake the feeling that something had changed. The Valorians had seemed friendly before. Now they seemed afraid. He didn't know why, but he intended to find out. 3 days passed aboard the Valorian flagship. Captain Minho and his team had their own section of the ship, comfortable rooms with everything they needed. The Valorians brought them strange but edible food. They asked endless questions about human biology, culture, and history. Everything seemed peaceful, but Minho felt uneasy. The Valorians watched them constantly, not openly, but he could feel it. Cameras hidden in walls, sensors tracking their movements. And the questions had changed. Now the aliens asked about human endurance, about pain tolerance, about how long humans could go without sleep. They're studying us like lab animals, Hana said one evening. She sat in Minho's quarters, her voice low. Every meal is a test. They're measuring what we eat, how much we drink, even how often we use the bathroom. This isn't cultural exchange, this is assessment. Before Minho could answer, the door opened. Commander Yuna entered without knocking, 2 Valorian guards behind her. Captain Minho, we have a request. We would like to conduct what we call a compatibility test. One of your team members would participate in a series of exercises. Nothing dangerous. We simply want to understand human physical capabilities better. Minho stood up slowly. What kind of exercises? Endurance trials, problem-solving under stress, basic things. It would help us understand if humans could work alongside Valorians in joint operations. Surely you want our species to cooperate? It was phrased as a question, but Minho heard the command underneath. Who would participate? The young one, Jiho. He seems fit and capable. Minho's jaw tightened. Jiho was barely 23, eager to prove himself. I'll do it instead. No, Yuna said flatly. We have observed Jiho specifically. He is the ideal test subject. This is not negotiable, Captain. You are guests on our vessel. You will cooperate, or you will return to your ship and continue your journey, without our protection. The threat was clear. There was something dangerous out here, and the Valorians were the only ones who could keep them safe, or so they claimed. "I'll do it," Jiho said from the doorway. He must have been listening. "I'm not afraid, Captain. If it helps humanity make friends with the Valorians, I'll do whatever test they want." Minho wanted to refuse. Every instinct screamed danger. But they were trapped on an alien ship, surrounded by a species they barely understood. "Fine," he said, "but I'm coming to watch." Yuna's crystalline half-face reflected the light as she smiled. Of course. The testing chamber was enormous, easily the size of a football field. One side looked like an obstacle course. Another section had strange machines with blinking lights. The far end held what looked like a medical area. Jiho stood in the center, wearing a simple gray suit the Valorians had given him. Sensors covered the fabric, probably monitoring everything about his body. A dozen Valorians watched from a raised platform, including Commander Yuna and another alien who introduced himself as High Evaluator Threx. "Begin with physical endurance," Threx announced. His voice came from speakers around the room, cold and mechanical. Jiho started running. The course was hard, full of walls to climb, gaps to jump, weights to lift. Minho watched his young officer push himself, sweating and breathing hard but never stopping. An hour passed, then 2. Jiho stumbled, caught himself, kept going. "Interesting," Threx said. "His efficiency is dropping, but he continues. When will he enter emergency shutdown?" "Humans don't have emergency shutdown," Hana reminded them. She stood next to Minho, her fists clenched. "He'll keep going until he collapses." "Impossible," another Valorian said. "All species have preservation protocols. The body forces shut down before damage becomes permanent." "Not humans," Minho said quietly. They watched Jiho run for another hour. Finally, he fell, his legs giving out. But even on the ground, he tried to crawl forward. 2 Valorians went down to help him up, but he pushed them away, forcing himself to stand on shaking legs. "Enough," Threx said. "Bring him to the medical station. We will observe his recovery shutdown." They laid Jiho on a table. Dr. Hana rushed down to check on him, but the Valorians held her back. They hooked Jiho up to their machines, monitoring his vital signs. His heart raced. His breathing came in gasps. Sweat covered his face. "His systems are in distress," Threx observed. "Shutdown should begin now." But Jiho's eyes stayed open. He stared at the ceiling, chest heaving, muscles trembling. He was exhausted, hurt, probably dehydrated. But he was awake, fully conscious. "Why doesn't he shut down?" a Valorian asked. "Is his mechanism broken?" "There is no mechanism," Hana said. She had broken free from the guards and reached Jiho's side. She checked his pulse, looked into his eyes. "He's fine. Exhausted, but fine. He just needs rest and water. Normal human rest. Not shut down." "Give him water," Threx ordered. "We will test his cognitive function under extreme fatigue." "No," Minho said. "This test is over. He's done enough." "The test ends when we say it ends," Threx replied. His voice had no emotion. "We must understand this. A species that cannot shut down, that continues functioning regardless of damage or exhaustion. We must know the limits." They kept Jiho awake for another 12 hours. They gave him puzzles to solve, questions to answer, tasks to complete. They pushed him until he could barely think straight, until his hands shook too much to hold objects, until his words slurred together. And through it all, he stayed conscious. Suffering, yes. Struggling, absolutely. But awake, aware, unable to escape into the mercy of shutdown. When they finally let him rest, Jiho collapsed into sleep within seconds. But it was natural sleep, the kind humans could be woken from. The Valorians watched him for hours, monitoring his brain activity, clearly disturbed by what they saw. "His consciousness never truly stops," Threx said to Commander Yuna. Minho heard them talking, not caring that he could listen. Even in sleep, his brain remains active, dreaming, processing, ready to wake at the slightest disturbance. This is horrifying, a species trapped in eternal wakefulness. It makes them dangerous, Yuna replied. Think about it. In battle, our soldiers can be forced into emergency shutdown with the right weapons. These humans cannot. They would keep fighting until death. No off switch. No way to incapacitate them except through complete destruction. Should we proceed with the plan? Yes, more than ever. A species like this, if they develop advanced weapons, could threaten the entire empire. Better to eliminate them now while they're still primitive. Minho's blood went cold. He kept his face neutral, pretending he hadn't heard. Slowly, carefully, he walked back to his quarters. His mind raced, piecing together the truth. This had never been about cultural exchange. The Valorians had been testing humanity's weaknesses, looking for a way to shut them down, and they had discovered the terrible truth. Humans didn't have an off switch, which meant the Valorians were going to try something else, something permanent. Minho gathered his team in his quarters that night. Jiho was there too, recovered enough to stand despite the brutal testing. The young officer had earned new respect from everyone. He had shown the aliens what humans were made of, even if he hadn't meant to. "We're in danger," Minho said quietly. "I overheard Yuna and Threx talking. They're planning something. Something about eliminating us before we become a threat." Hana's face went pale. "I've been analyzing their technology while we've been here. Their entire ship runs on something similar to what causes their stasis mode. Electromagnetic pulses that can shut down biomechanical systems. I think that's how they fight wars. They force enemy species into shutdown, then move in to finish them. But that won't work on humans," Taeyang said slowly, understanding dawning in his eyes. "Exactly. Which means they'll try something else." Minho looked at each of them. "We need to find out what they're planning, and we need to warn Earth." Before anyone could respond, the ship shuddered. Lights flickered, then everything went dark. Emergency lighting came on, dim and red. An alarm blared, then cut off suddenly. "What's happening?" Nari asked. The door to Minho's quarters slid open. Commander Yuna stood there, but something was wrong. Her movements were jerky, uncertain. Her glowing eyes flickered. "Captain, Minho," she said, her voice distorted. "Emergency, protocols, engaged. All Valorian crew entering forced stasis, ship under attack. You must help." Then she simply stopped. Her eyes went dark. She stood frozen like a statue, completely motionless. Not breathing, not blinking, just off. "She's in stasis," Hana whispered. "The ship triggered an emergency shutdown of all Valorian crew." Minho moved quickly. He stepped past Yuna's frozen form into the hallway. More Valorians stood or lay there, all of them perfectly still, all of them shut down. The entire crew, gone in an instant. "But we're still awake," Jiho said. "We're not affected." "Because we can't be shut down," Minho realized. "Their emergency system can't touch us. We're immune." He started running toward the bridge. "Come on! If the ship is really under attack, we need to take control!" They ran through corridors filled with frozen Valorians. It was eerie, like moving through a ship of statues. Some had been walking and now stood mid-step. Others had been eating and sat with food halfway to their mouths, all perfectly preserved but completely unconscious. The bridge was empty except for 3 motionless Valorian officers. Taeyang went straight to the engineering console, his hands moving over the alien controls. Nari took communications. Minho stood at the captain's station, trying to make sense of the displays. "I don't see any attacking ships," Nari said, checking the sensors. "We're alone out here." "Then what triggered the emergency?" Hana asked. Taeyang's face had gone white. "Captain, you need to see this." He brought up a display that took Minho a moment to understand. When he did, rage filled him. It was a flight plan, a massive Valorian war fleet heading toward Earth, and a detailed tactical analysis showing how they would deploy shutdown devices across human space. Weapons designed to force every living thing on a planet into emergency stasis. Except they wouldn't know humans couldn't be shut down that way. They were planning genocide, Hana said softly. Make every human on Earth fall unconscious, then what? Kill us all while we slept? Worse, Taeyang said, pulling up more files. They weren't going to kill us. They were going to study us, take us apart to figure out how we work, find a way to force shutdown in humans. We were going to become their lab rats. And this emergency? Minho asked. This is their trap for us. The whole ship goes into stasis, and we're supposed to panic. Or maybe they thought we'd shut down, too. He checked the navigation. We're being pulled off course by autopilot, toward a Valorian military station. How long until we arrive? Jiho asked. 16 hours, and the Valorian crew will wake up in... Taeyang checked another display. 72 hours. Standard emergency stasis duration. Minho's mind raced. They had a ship full of sleeping aliens and a narrow window to act. Can we send a message to Earth? Warn them about the fleet? Not with the ship's normal systems, Nari said. The communications are locked down in emergency mode. But, she studied the displays. If we could hack into their military network, we could send a burst transmission. It would reach Earth before the war fleet does. How long would that take? Nari and Taeyang looked at each other. With the four of us working non-stop, Taeyang said. Maybe 60 hours, if we're lucky. We don't sleep during those 60 hours, Minho said. We can't risk it. The Valorians will wake up in 72 hours. We need to be done and gone before then. Captain, that's insane, Hana said. Humans need sleep. After 60 hours without rest, we'll barely be able to think straight. But we'll still be thinking, Minho said. We'll still be conscious. The Valorians don't understand what that means. They think because we can't shut down, we're fragile, broken. They don't realize it makes us stubborn. He looked at his team. We've been awake for maybe 18 hours today. We can do another 60. We have to. Doyun, their pilot, was brought up from where he had been exploring the ship. Yunji, their combat specialist, was also found and briefed. Both had been wandering the frozen vessel, trying to understand what happened. Lock down critical areas, Minho ordered Yunji. Make sure no Valorian systems can come back online unexpectedly. Doyun, learn how to fly this thing. If we need to run, we need to be ready. And if we can't hack their system in time, Jiho asked. Then we find another way to warn Earth, Minho said grimly. Even if we have to fly this ship home ourselves. They got to work. The next hours blurred together. Taeyang and Nari worked on cracking the Valorian military codes. Hana studied the alien medical systems, looking for a way to delay the crew's wake-up time if needed. Doyun practiced with the flight controls. Yunji fortified their position, and Minho coordinated it all, drinking coffee that tasted terrible, fighting exhaustion, refusing to rest. Around them, thousands of Valorians slept in perfect stasis. The ship drifted through space, pulling them toward whatever trap the aliens had planned. 40 hours passed, then 50. The humans grew tired, made mistakes, had to redo work, but they kept going. Because stopping wasn't an option. Because unlike the species around them, they couldn't just shut down when things got hard. At hour 58, Nari finally cracked the encryption. I'm in, she said, her voice hoarse from exhaustion. I can send the message, but only once. After that, their security will lock me out permanently. Make it count, Minho said. He dictated a warning message about the Valorian fleet. Their weapons, their plans, everything Earth needed to know to prepare. Nari sent it with shaking hands. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then her console blinked green. Message transmitted, she whispered. Earth will get it in 6 hours, long before the fleet arrives. Minho felt relief wash over him, but they weren't safe yet. Hana, can you delay their wake-up? Already done, Hana said. I've synthesized a compound from their medical supplies, pumped it into their air circulation. The Valorians will stay in stasis for another 48 hours, long enough for Earth to prepare, long enough for us to get away. Then let's go home, Minho said. They had been awake for 63 hours straight. They were exhausted, barely able to stand, but they were awake, conscious, victorious. The Valorians had tried to trap humanity. They had failed to understand the simple truth. You can't stop something that doesn't have an off switch. The Eternal Dawn received Minho's warning message 7 hours after it was sent. Earth got it 2 hours after that. And then everything changed. Back aboard the Valorian flagship, Minho's team faced a new problem. They had sent the warning, but the Valorian war fleet was still coming. And even with the extra time Hana had bought them, the Eternal Calculations crew would wake up eventually. When they did, they would find humans in control of their ship. That wouldn't end well. We need to leave, Doyen said. He sat at the pilot's station, exhausted but alert. Take our shuttle back to the Eternal Dawn and get out of here. The Valorian fleet will just follow us, Minho said. Or worse, they'll catch up to us halfway home. We'd be sitting ducks. So what do we do? Yunji asked. We can't fight an entire war fleet with one colony ship. Minho stared at the tactical display showing the approaching Valorian forces. 23 warships, all heading toward Earth. All equipped with shutdown weapons that wouldn't work on humans, but they didn't know that yet. And once they did figure it out, they would switch to conventional weapons. Weapons that would work just fine. We don't run, Minho decided. We prepare. Taeyang looked up from his console, bloodshot eyes wide. Captain, we've been awake for 65 hours. We're running on fumes. We can't fight a war like this. No, Minho agreed, but we can stack the deck before the fight even starts. He turned to the team. The Valorians' entire strategy depends on their shutdown weapons. That's their opening move in every battle. They've never had to fight without it. That's their weakness. Hana nodded slowly, understanding. We turn this ship into a trap. When the fleet arrives at Earth, we make sure they learn the hard way that humans don't shut down. Exactly. But we need to be smart about it. Minho pointed at the display. Nari, can you access their fleet communications? Not to send messages, just to listen? Nari's fingers flew over her console. Give me an hour. Taeyang, study their weapon systems. I want to know everything about how their shutdown devices work. Range, frequency, power consumption, everything. On it. Hana, keep monitoring the crew. I don't want any surprises if someone wakes up early. Yunji, work with Doyun. If we need to move this ship during the battle, we need to be ready. And we need to make it look like the Valorian crew is still in control. They worked through hour 66, then 67. Coffee helped, but not enough. They made mistakes, caught them, fixed them. Their bodies screamed for rest. Their eyes burned, their hands shook. But they kept going. Because this was what humans did. They pushed through impossible situations. They refused to quit. At hour 70, Nari broke through to the Valorian fleet communications. I'm listening to their chatter, she said. They think everything is going according to plan. They expect to arrive at Earth in 42 hours. They're going to deploy their shutdown weapons on the planet first, then move in to capture major cities. Do they know we sent a warning? Minho asked. No mention of it. Either they don't monitor our transmissions, or they think humans are too primitive to understand their codes. That was good. Earth would have time to prepare. But Minho needed to do more. He needed to make sure the Valorians learned their lesson so thoroughly they would never threaten humanity again. Here's what we're going to do, he said. When the fleet arrives at Earth, this ship is going to be there. We'll fake the crew being awake and active. The fleet will expect us to report on the human testing. We'll tell them the tests were successful, that humans do have a shutdown mechanism, and it's ready to deploy." "They'll never believe that," Jiho said. "They want to believe it," Hana countered. "They're terrified of a species without an off switch. If we tell them what they want to hear, they'll accept it. At least long enough for us to spring the trap." The plan came together over the next few hours. They would use the ship's automated systems to simulate an active crew. They would send fake reports through the fleet network. And when the Valorians deployed their shutdown weapons on Earth, they would discover that humans were completely unaffected. But there was more to it than that. Minho had realized something important about Valorian psychology. They didn't just rely on their shutdown weapons tactically, they depended on them psychologically. The ability to shut down was their safety net, their emergency escape, their last resort. A species that could turn off in crisis would never develop the same kind of desperate, stubborn survival instinct that humans had. When they realize their shutdown weapons don't work, Minho explained to his team, they're going to panic. And when they panic, what do Valorians do? "They enter emergency stasis," Taeyang said, eyes widening. "Their own safety protocol will shut them down." "Exactly. Their greatest strength becomes their greatest weakness. We just need to push them hard enough to trigger it." They worked through hour 80. Minho felt like he was moving through mud. Every thought took effort. Every decision felt heavy. But his mind kept working, planning, calculating. This was hour 81, then 82. "How are you still functioning?" Hana asked him at one point. She looked terrible, dark circles under her eyes, her hands trembling as she worked. But she was still working. "I'm a doctor. I know what sleep deprivation does to humans." "We should be hallucinating by now." "Maybe we are," Minho said. "Maybe this is all a dream, and we're actually still sleeping on Earth." He smiled grimly. "But probably not. Humans can go a long time without sleep when they need to. We're endurance hunters. Our ancestors tracked prey for days without stopping. This is just what we do." "The Valorians don't understand that," Nari said softly. "They think efficiency is everything. Use only what you need. Shut down when you can. They don't understand that sometimes you need to be inefficient, wasteful, willing to burn yourself out to survive." The Valorian crew stayed in their extended stasis. The ship drifted on autopilot, and the human team worked through hour 85, then 90. They reached a point where exhaustion became almost normal. Their bodies adapted, running on reserves they didn't know they had. At hour 94, Earth contacted them. The Eternal Dawn had relayed their position and situation. Earth's defense forces were mobilizing. Ships were moving into position. Ground defenses were being prepared. But most importantly, Earth's military had understood Minho's message about the shutdown weapons. "They know the Valorians can't turn us off," the message said. "We're ready for them." Minho felt something lift from his shoulders. They had done it. Earth would survive. But his job wasn't finished yet. "We stay with the plan," he told his team. "When the Valorian fleet arrives, we make sure they learn this lesson permanently. We show them what happens when you underestimate humans." At hour 98, Minho made everyone eat and drink water. At hour 100, he made them do light exercises to keep blood flowing. He couldn't let them sleep, not yet, but he could take care of them. At hour 103, the Valorian war fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of Earth's solar system. 23 warships, massive and powerful, their surfaces covered in the same shifting silver metal as the eternal calculations. And on the Valorian flagship, 5 humans stood ready, exhausted beyond measure, running on nothing but will and coffee, but awake, conscious, ready. The Valorians were about to learn why you should never fight a species that doesn't have an off switch. The Valorian war fleet gathered at the edge of Earth's solar system, their ships arranged in perfect formation. On the bridge of the eternal calculations, Minho watched through exhausted eyes as the automated systems sent fake status reports to the fleet commander. Everything looked normal. The flagship's crew appeared to be awake and ready. It had been 107 hours since Minho had last slept. His team wasn't much better. Nari swayed at her station. Taiyang's hands shook constantly now. Even Eunji, their toughest fighter, had to lean against the wall to stay standing. But they were all still conscious, still functional, still human. "Fleet Commander is hailing us," Nari said, her voice rough. "Audio only. They can't see we're the only ones awake on this ship." "Put them through," Minho said. He had practiced this, knew what to say. A voice came through the speakers, cold and mechanical, like all Valorian speech. "This is Fleet Commander Vex of the Valorian Empire. Eternal calculations. Report status of human assessment." Minho took a breath. "Assessment complete, Commander. Humans do possess a shutdown mechanism. It is triggered by electromagnetic pulse at specific frequencies. Recommend deployment of all planetary shutdown devices as planned." There was a pause. "You are certain? Previous data suggested humans lacked this capability." "Our tests were thorough," Minho lied smoothly. "The human specimen endured extreme stress before shutdown activation. But it does exist. Humanity can be incapacitated with our standard weapons." Another pause, longer this time. Minho could almost hear the Valorian commander's relief. A species without an off-switch was terrifying. Being told that off-switch existed after all was exactly what they wanted to hear. "Confirmed. All ships. Prepare shutdown devices. Target the human homeworld. Deployment in 10 minutes. The communication cut off. Minho looked at his team. "Earth knows what's coming. Now we wait." Those 10 minutes felt like hours. The Valorian fleet moved into position around Earth. Down on the planet, 5 billion humans went about their lives. Some knew the attack was coming. Most didn't. But all of them were awake, conscious, unable to be turned off. "Shutdown devices activating," Nari reported. "They're flooding Earth's atmosphere with electromagnetic pulses. The frequencies are designed to trigger emergency stasis in all biological life." "And?" Minho asked, though he already knew the answer. "Nothing. No effect. Humans are completely unaffected. We're monitoring Earth's communications. Everyone is still awake and confused about why the sky is lighting up with weird colors. The Valorian fleet must have noticed, too. Their communications channels exploded with chatter, confusion, disbelief, fear." "Shutdown devices are not functioning," one captain reported. "Human population remains active." "Increase power," Commander Vex ordered. "Maximum output." The devices powered up again, flooding Earth with even stronger pulses. The sky lit up like an aurora, but down below, humans kept living, working, talking, existing, unaware that aliens were desperately trying to flip their off switches. "It's not working," another Valorian captain said, panic creeping into the mechanical voice. "The humans aren't shutting down. What do we do?" Minho had been waiting for this moment. He signaled to Nari, who opened a channel to the entire Valorian fleet. Not pretending to be a Valorian this time. Just himself, a human. "Attention, Valorian fleet," Minho said. "This is Captain Minho of Earth. Your shutdown weapons don't work on us. They never did. We tried to tell you, humans don't have an off switch. We can't be turned off. We can't be made to sleep. We can't be incapacitated except through death. And right now, you're in orbit around a planet full of 5 billion humans who are very, very angry that you tried to shut them down." Silence. Then chaos. The Valorian fleet's communications went wild. It was a trap. The humans lied. "How do we fight them if we can't shut them down?" "They're going to kill us. They'll never stop. They can't stop." And then Earth's defense forces struck. Ships that had been hiding in the shadow of the moon came online. Ground-based weapons fired, satellites activated. It wasn't a fair fight. Earth's technology was less advanced than the Valorians. But Earth had numbers, and Earth had something else. Earth had humans. The Valorian ships tried to return fire, but their tactics were all wrong. They relied on their shutdown weapons being effective first. When those failed, they didn't know how to respond. They had protocols, yes, but those protocols assumed the enemy would be incapacitated or at least slowed down. Humans were neither. Valorian ship Crushing Logic is entering emergency stasis, Nari reported. Their crew just shut themselves down. They're sitting ducks. Another one, Taeyang said. Eternal Wisdom. Their stress levels hit critical and their safety protocols kicked in. The whole crew is in emergency shutdown. It was exactly what Minho had predicted. The Valorians were so dependent on their ability to shut down in emergencies that their own biology was betraying them. Faced with an enemy they couldn't turn off, an enemy that kept coming no matter what, their panic triggered their emergency protocols. One by one, Valorian ships went dark as their crews entered forced stasis. Within 20 minutes, 15 of the 23 warships were disabled. The remaining 8 tried to retreat, but Earth's ships pursued. The battle was over before it really began. On the eternal calculations, High Evaluator Threx's eyes suddenly flickered to life. He had woken from stasis early, perhaps triggered by the ship's emergency systems detecting battle. He looked around the bridge, seeing humans where his crew should be. You, he said to Minho. How are you still conscious? You've been awake for days. Your kind should have shut down from exhaustion alone. We're tired, Minho admitted. More tired than I've ever been in my life. But we're awake, because that's what humans do. We push through, we endure. We refuse to stop, even when stopping would be easier. It's a design flaw, Threx insisted. Inefficient, wasteful. How do you survive? By not being like you, Minho said. You can shut down, and that makes you vulnerable. When things get hard, you can escape. Your consciousness can be turned off. Ours can't. That's not a flaw. That's why we're standing here and you're defeated. More Valorians were waking now as the stasis timer ran out. They found their fleet in ruins, their great plan shattered, their primary weapon useless. And everywhere they looked, they saw humans. Tired humans, yes. Exhausted humans who had been awake for over 100 hours, but awake nonetheless. Commander Vex contacted the flagship, his voice hollow. We surrender. We did not understand. We thought you were primitive. We thought your lack of shutdown was a weakness. We were wrong. Earth's forces accepted the surrender. The Valorian ships were disabled and boarded. Their crews, those who hadn't shut down in panic, were taken into custody. The war that was supposed to end in humanity's capture lasted less than an hour. Minho and his team were finally allowed to sleep. They had been awake for 114 hours straight. When they closed their eyes, they fell into unconsciousness instantly. But even in sleep, their brains kept working, dreaming, processing, ready to wake at the slightest sound. Because that's what it meant to be human. No off switch. No escape from consciousness. An existence of eternal wakefulness, with only brief moments of rest in between. Weeks later, after recovery and debriefing, Minho stood in Earth's orbital defense headquarters. Representatives from the Valorian Empire had come to sign a formal peace treaty. The terms were simple. The Valorians would leave human space forever. They would spread word throughout the galaxy about humanity. A warning to any species who might think about attacking Earth. What will you tell them? Minho asked Commander Yuna, who had survived and been released as part of the peace negotiations. The truth, she said. Her crystalline eyes reflected the light. That we encountered a species unlike any other, a species that cannot be shut down, cannot be stopped, cannot be made to rest or give up or surrender through any means except death. We will tell them that humanity is dangerous precisely because you lack what every other species has. You have no off switch, and that makes you the most terrifying species in the galaxy." She paused, looking at Minho with something like respect. "Your people will spread across the stars now. When others meet you, they will think you are simple, biological, inefficient. They will underestimate you as we did, and they will learn, as we did, that a species which never stops is unstoppable." The Valorians left. Earth celebrated. The colony mission to the New World resumed, this time with military escorts and new confidence. Humanity had met the galaxy and proven they belonged among the stars. Dr. Hana found Minho in his quarters that night, staring out at Earth. "How do you feel?" she asked. "Tired," he admitted, "but also awake. Always awake. Even when I sleep, part of me keeps running, watching, waiting. I used to think it was exhausting carrying consciousness without rest. Now I know it's what saved us." "The blessing and the curse," Hana said. "We can't turn off. It hurts. It's hard. But it means we can't be defeated by anything except death itself." Minho nodded. "The Valorians tried to find our weakness. Instead, they found our strength. We're humans. We don't have a power switch. And the galaxy is going to learn what that means." Outside, Earth turned slowly in space, covered in lights from 5 billion humans. All of them awake, all of them conscious, all of them living lives of endless wakefulness, carrying on because they had no choice. No way to shut down, no way to stop. And that was exactly how humanity would conquer the stars, not through superior technology or greater numbers, but through simple, stubborn, relentless persistence, one conscious moment at a time, forever.